Let's see. All right. So welcome to the AXO information meeting. This is intended to be a space to understand and know exactly what you signed up for, ask questions about it, and get some information about the AXO program and your expectations with navigating through it. Follow us on Instagram. I try and post not a ton, but we get some information out there to keep you aware of what's going on. The calendar of events and lots of other flyers are usually shared there as well. So navigating on, hopefully that screen changed. So what is
It did.
AXO? Thank you. AXO stands for Afro Academic, Cultural, Technological, and Scientific Olympics. It is a enrichment program that sits under the administrative aegis of the NAACP, intended for students in grades 9 through 12 of African descent. It was started or founded or brainchild by a man named Vernon Jarrett. He was a journalist and he just wanted to create a space for youth in his community to be able to showcase their artistic and academic ability, and that wasn't provided. So he started at the local level with creating these competitions and then moved on to pulling those together. And now in over 300 cities, we have AXO units and branches that come together and participate at the national level. So we are thankful for him. One of the things that I like to share just in going back is I participated in AXO over 30 years ago when I was in high school. Erin, you're on the call, and so I can attest that you also participated.
Yes, I
And
did.
yes, and found it to be a very enriching program. And the thing that I'll share and say is, even if you don't win, right, it's still a great opportunity for just networking and meeting students who are like you, seeing people in the space that you exist in that have the same drive and focus. So it's just a great experience and opportunity is what I'll say. And when we get to our kickoff, I'll share a little bit more around that. Here's some basic program information. So open to all high school students in the Fort Bend County area and vicinity. There is a Houston branch. So we just have to, make sure if there's anybody that is, for example, in the Houston or Harris County line, that we get you over to the Houston chapter. We pick up Fort Bend County and vicinity. There are 5 categories in the AXO that AXO offers, and you'll see them here: STEM, humanities, performing arts, visual arts, and business. Under each of those categories are 32 different competition areas. And so I'll show on the next screen an example of what some of those are, which you should have seen, most of you that filled out a interest form, and you were able to pick through those different competition areas. So here's a view at what that looks like. So here's STEM, the visual arts, performing arts, business, and the humanities. And I think one of the things that I explained is it's wide open, and we certainly encourage, as is mentioned here, for students to select up to 3 competitions. So you may be somebody who is of an engineering mind, or maybe you're even working on or doing a project at school, but in your heart, you are a writer. You like to, write poems, or you like to write short stories. You have just stories that need to be told. Or maybe you are, of the performing arts and you play an instrument. So we strongly encourage you to express your artistic and academic ability across the board and just maximize on that. Gold medal winners do advance to the national competition. So what that means is at the local level, and this is what you're gearing up for, is that we're going to have a local competition. There are 3 levels that you have to ascertain or gain, and that's bronze, silver, and gold. So those are the 3 levels of prizes, and you get that by getting so many points. And so again, once we get to the kickoff and the orientation a little bit, we'll go into more depth, but I just like to set the expectation and understanding What we do on our end is that we provide, and there is a space for us to cover your travel to the national competition. So the airfare and the lodging or hotel is provided. That's a part of you winning gold and being able to go on and represent us at that national level. So looking at the eligibility and requirements, as I mentioned, high school student, grades 9 through 12, a US citizen, and an amateur in your category. And so what that means is, because there are students coming from all over, we want to make sure that it's a fair apples to apples. It shouldn't be anybody that is generating funds or revenue from their business, for example, or you are an acclaimed, writer or musician. So it just sets a same level tone in providing and putting that out there. The requirements, or the some of the eligibility or requirements, also include completing the student application and the interest form. So the interest form was your initial. That just gives us a way to know what you're interested in and that you are motivated and serious. And then the student application, it's a more involving process. So right now we're just kind of recruiting, getting you in. Once you sort of commit and say, hey, this is what I want to do, I'll create a folder for you, or we create a folder for you, and that's where we house all of your paperwork. So there's about 7 documents that complete your student application. Easy information, but we do have to house it and have it somewhere. There's an orientation that will happen that's mandatory, as well as it's kind of a student kickoff orientation. So it'll be our big entrance into this AXO season. And then we'll have workshops and sessions that we highly encourage you to attend. And there's a mandatory on how many you should attend, because they're meant to be things that really bridge this gap between you as an emerging adult and the business professional world. I run into so many adults, and Erin, I know you're on the call, that really just want to support what students are doing and helping them to understand that entrance into just the business and the working world and what that looks like, in whatever lane or way that you want to go into it. So we utilize them for creating workshops and sessions, and they can also be your mentors. The other is following the AXO guidelines. And so that's what you would have received in that email, so that you could start reading up on, okay, I've chosen, music composition. What does that mean? What do I need to work on? We'll read through that, and that's going to give you exactly everything that you need to know in there. So I'll pause really quickly before I move into the important dates. What questions can I answer about either the eligibility or this previous slide, the program information?
I have a question.
Sure.
How are we able to still apply for other positions?
When you say apply for other positions, what do you mean?
Not apply, but the other categories.
Absolutely. Okay. So, and there we go. Important dates. So the sort of registration deadline is January 31st. What that means, and it'll likely be extended. We just have to sort of set a date so that we start to gather and understand what categories you all want to participate in. Because what happens behind the scenes is, based on your category, we have to do a couple of things. One, see if you need a mentor to make sure that they start working with you on your project or your performance. And then the second is, because this is a competition, we find judges who have expertise in the area that you've chosen. So that requires a bit of due diligence on our part. So we just have to make sure that we have kind of a deadline on whatever category you've chosen. And so that's sort of the soft and initial deadline. We'll probably have a hard one probably a week after this, just to be honest. And that's sort of the date where we say, okay, these are the categories you've chosen. You can't add any. You can certainly, drop. For example, Jennifer, if you said, you were choosing engineering and playwright and original essay, and you were like, well, just got in, too far over my head. I'm going to stick with engineering and maybe poetry, but I'm not going to do original essay. that's totally fine. Just, changing or adding is where it kind of becomes problematic. But we can always also still try and work with you. Because again, if it's something within the same category, like humanities, most of the time the judges are an expert up across the board. So it shouldn't be too problematic. But I do like to mention that so that we don't have, just people changing or trying to add certain categories, because like I said, behind the scenes, we have to find a judge to be able to evaluate that area. And then the kickoff.
Hey, I was going to add to that, Ms. Jones.
Yes.
Yeah, so what I was going to say, as a former AXO participant, I always typically competed in multiple categories, just because from my standpoint, when I was in high school, I wanted to ensure myself a victory in at least one category. So I would definitely encourage you, if you're interested in more than one thing that you have a talent in, to definitely do more than one. I wouldn't say do a ton, right? Because you do have to commit to each one of them. As far as the ones that you enter, like when I was in high school, I did poetry and I did original art. And again, it's an undertaking, but one of the great things about it is it gives you a better chance of possibly being able to go to the next level if you are competing in more than one category. So just a word of advice.
Thank you. Absolutely. Any other questions around that? I see there's William Jones. William, are you student or parent?
William is student.
Student. Okay. Thank you. All right. That kickoff is going to be tentatively February the 2nd. It's sort of at the end of that week for the deadline, and that would be mandatory. Again, just as an opportunity and space to fully understand and know exactly what the expectations are, what's coming up. The local competition, I have it listed as a hybrid. So what that will, well, this should say hybrid. I apologize. That should be a B. And so it will be in April of 2024. Most likely it'll be like that third weekend, I think it is in April. So like the 20th, 21st. And hybrid just meaning we'll do some parts virtual, but then there may be some parts that we need to do in person. So things like the performing arts or the visual arts, I like to do those in person just so the judges can see it, touch it, hear it, be firsthand. But we have done it virtual. So we will also kind of play that by ear. We come back in about 2 weeks and have a award ceremony, and that's when the students find out exactly how you placed. So that award ceremony is what will determine if you made bronze, silver, or gold, and whether you are advancing on to that national competition, which this year it's going to be back in Las Vegas, and it is July 10th through 14th. So that's a date to, sort of hold space for if you fingers crossed, hoping and knowing that you're going to advance on. The student workshops and enrichment sessions, again, those are things that we're working on, and they're really intended and meant for you. So we do encourage and sort of mandate participation at those, because we're pulling business professionals from across the local community to come in and share their expertise and knowledge with you. So they are designed and meant to support you. And those are going to happen in February and March, maybe that first part of April as well, before we have the local competition. And then the mentor sessions, they are just arranged with your mentor. So depending on if you already have one or if you need one, you would just work with them. And now, any questions that were not answered?
How would we join other categories still?
So I don't recall. Do you remember what you indicated on your interest form, Jennifer?
Yes, I did entrepreneurship and business.
Okay. So entrepreneurship would sit under business, I do believe. Let me see. Yes. So you just chose the one area.
Yes.
Okay. You could either, let me go back. Let us know, let me know at the end of this, and I'll go in and add it to your form, because when you all filled out that Google form, we captured it in a spreadsheet, so I can go in and add that. That becomes our master list, or send an email.
Okay.
That works. There was a question, and I don't remember if it was from you, but I'll go ahead and answer it on this recording just in case, since we'll send it out. There was a question from someone about, I guess, pairing up or even getting in groups to compete. These are all single person categories. So you are competing by yourself, in whatever you choose. They do have some group categories, like there's one, sustainability and hospitality, I think is a group, but we aren't offering those just yet, so they would not, so we wouldn't have any offerings that allow you to compete as a group. It would just be individual. So I did want to address that, because I think I saw it come up as a question. All right. Is there anything else you can think of, Erin, that maybe wasn't covered or
No, I think you
mentioned?
covered pretty much everything. Like I said, recording it, we should be able to send it out to all the students that didn't get to attend tonight, and then maybe subsequently it'll be more questions that'll kind of come from that.
Okay.
And William, I know
Okay.
you joined late because you had a prior engagement, but we did record this, so we'll be able to send it out. So once you receive it, if you have questions, you can always reach out.